Assalamu alaikum. Dear student, today we are going to start a new unit, that is circulation. For this unit, I must tell you that in your textbook, the first 2-3 chapters, they are practically more important as compared to its theory part. So very few things which are important regarding your SCQ or MCQ. In that we can we determine the blood pressure, how you can determine the blood pressure, how you can measure the blood pressure. That is a part of the practical thing. But regarding the theory, initially first 2-3 chapters, they have very less material important regarding the SCQ or MCQ. But after that, the very important chapter starts, that is the local and humoral control of the blood flow, and also the rapid control of the blood pressure, how the fluctuation in the blood pressure is managed, auto regulation. These are very important chapters. So today we in this video just have a overview of the circulation. You can see that the vascular system or the circulatory system have this main organ, that is starting from heart. The blood is pumped through the heart and distributed to whole of the body through the arteries and the veins. As you know, the arteries, they are carrying oxygenated blood, so they are shown as red, while in the veins we have the deoxygenated blood. Because of that, we show these vessels as blue. For that, the respiratory system, obviously the lungs and alveoli, they are very important. From functional point of view, they are this is the system which is going to transport or have the exchange of gases, because of which your body is supplied with the oxygenated blood and you get rid of carbon dioxide. As far as the functions of the circulatory system is concerned, the most important is the transportation, either the gaseous or any other digestive material. It may be the transport of the oxygen and also the carbon dioxide, or it carry absorbed digestive parts, products from the liver and the tissues, and supply more of the body, the energy part, and pick up the waste material also. The second thing, that is the regulation, either the hormonal or the regulation of the temperature, or it is the protection for the blood clotting, or the very important part, that is the immune system, having the leukocytes, cytokines, complement system, all these acting against the pathogens. So this is the system, that is the circulatory system, running in not only the blood vessels but also have the lymphatics, through which all these functions they are performed. So we can say the main components of the circulatory system consist of mainly heart and blood vessels, and the second part, that is consist of lymphatic system. Heart obviously pumping the blood and supplying the blood through the blood vessels. And the lymphatics, they are very important regarding the immunity, regarding the through which you can get rid of the pathogens, and they are the system which is going to maintain the pressure also. If there is any increase in the pressure, interstitial pressure, that is maintained by the lymphatic system also. The components are arteries, major arteries, smaller arteries, then arterioles, capillaries, venules, and the veins ending on the superior inferior vena cava, which are going to drain the whole of the venous blood to the right side of the heart. So that the main function is to direct the flow of the blood from the heart to the capillaries and back to the heart. Through this diagram, I want to show the main difference between the artery and the vein regarding its structure. We know that arteries, they are carrying oxygenated blood, and the veins, they are carrying the deoxygenated blood. But what is the difference regarding their structure? So from this diagram you can see in the arteries very thick muscular wall. Thick outer layer of the elastic fiber and collagen run lengthwise to prevent leaks or bulges. Then narrow passage keeps pressure high. Elastic and muscle fibers of the inner layer help force blood on after each heartbeat, and the thick arterial wall helps withstand high pressure. So this is about the arterial wall. While in the veins, thin outer wall of collagen and elastic fiber running lengthwise, as there is little danger of bursting because of less pressure. Veins have valves to prevent the backflow, and this is very important in the legs, that they are having a one more function, that is of the pumping. They are pumping when you walk, the blood is pumped towards the heart. Wide passageway is needed to allow passage of the large quantity of slow moving blood. Thin inner layer with few muscle or elastic fiber, as blood doesn't flow in pulses, so vein wall can't push it on. Thin vein walls allow the entire vein to be pressed flat by adjacent muscles, which helps press the blood forward. Just I want to show the difference, structural difference of the arteries and the veins. Now comes the capillaries, which are the joints, vessels between the arteries and the veins. So this is the part where you can have the exchange, maximum exchange at this point, and they are numerous and very thin wall for the rapid exchange of the things, either the gaseous or the nutrient, all these things. I want to discuss the physiological classification of the blood vessel also. I know in the anatomy you can have a better concept about the arterial wall of the arteries, arterial walls and the venous wall. What are the differences? How they are going to classify these vessels? But here in the physiology, I just want to classify these vessels according to their function. One, as you know, that the main function of the arteries, they are carrying the oxygenated blood. Again I am saying this thing, but here some of the function they are performed with these basic function, that is the oxygenated blood transport of the oxygenated blood, or the deoxygenated blood transport of the gaseous, or the nutrition. All these, besides that we have some important other function. Based upon that, we have the physiological classification of the blood vessels. You may be asked about this thing in Viva because senior examiners often discuss this and want the answer from your side, that what is the difference, how you are going to classify these vessels according to their function. So you must have a clear concept about this. So functionally, we classify these vessels. Number one, that is the Windkessel vessel, which is the other name is the elastic or the pulsatile. The examples, it is the aorta and other large arteries having, or they have to bear the excessive pressure. So that's why they are called the pulsatile vessels. And you must remember that the degenerative changes in the media of these large vessels cause a loss of arterial elasticity and a high pulse pressure, so it results from loss of Van Kessel effect. That is, the elasticity will be lost. The second is the distribution vessel, conduit or the muscular. These vessels, they distribute blood to the organ. The muscular arteries can contract and relax also and have a rich autonomic innervation. And you must know that dilatation of these arteries supplying an active skeletal muscle facilitate the local increase in blood flow during exercise. So when we discuss the exercise physiology or the control of the local blood flow, you must know that these are the muscular arteries and they can contract and relax. Contraction can be life-saving in accidents as shown by a motorcycle crash victim brought into the casualty with one leg severed at the knee or any other injury to these vessels. The next is the resistance vessels. The major drop in the pressure occurs across the smallest terminal arteries and also the arterioles. So the terminal arteries and arterioles therefore called the resistance vessel because they are offering the maximum resistance. And also the resistance vessels, they act as taps that control the local blood flow and capillary perfusion. So these again, they are very important regarding the control of the local blood flow. The next is the exchange vessel. As its name shows, they are helpful for the transfer of oxygen and metabolites to the tissues. Gaseous or metabolite exchange take place chiefly in the capillaries. So these maybe you can say that they are mainly the capillaries. The next is the shunt vessels. Arteriovenous anastomosis regulate heat exchange. A few tissues, mostly the skin and nasal mucosa, possess white shunt vessels and that connect the arterioles directly to the venules, bypassing the capillaries. That is very important thing. The shunts that are called the arteriovenous anastomosis, their thick muscular walls are richly innervated by the sympathetic nerves. One more thing that you must know, what is the portal system? This is a very, very specific system in which we can have two sets of capillaries joined together by straight vessel excluding heart. This is a very special condition. Normally we can have the arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins, and then heart. Starting from the heart, the major artery, the aorta, major artery, ending to the capillaries, then venules, veins, ending again to the heart. That is the normal systemic circulation. But in the portal system, the difference is that we have two sets of capillaries joined together by straight vessels, excluding the involvement of the heart. Normally what happens? We have just one set of capillary, one side of the capillary having the arterioles and the other end having the venules. And if you want to have the next capillary set, that involves the heart involvement. But here we have the two sets of capillaries joined together by simple straight vessels. So this is a very, very specific thing about the circulation or the circulatory system, which is named as the portal system. So by definition, you should tell what is the portal system. Two sets of capillaries joined together by straight vessel excluding heart. In our body, very specific locations are there having this portal system. Number one is the hepatic, that is the hepatic portal system having very specific drainage from the GIT including the spleen, and they are and it is having the um, hepatic portal system having the portal vein also. In the kidneys we have this situation or the portal system, and the hypophyseal portal system, which includes the hypothalamus connected to the pituitary gland through these specific portal vessels. So this is a very, very important question, that how you are going to define the portal system and what are the locations in our body on which you can have the portal system. Now coming to the hemodynamics, the blood is flowing in the blood vessels. As we have some short concept for the how we have circulatory system including the heart vessels and how they are working, we can have the systemic circulation and the portal system also. Now comes the thing that in the vessels the blood is flowing. So what is the hemodynamics? What are the factors which are going to affect the blood flow? For that, we must know that flow is affected by mainly two factors, that is the pressure gradient and the vascular resistance. Now the next thing, what is the relationship between these factors? That is how the flow is related to the pressure and how it is related to the resistance. In physics, you have studied the Ohm's law, that is flow is directly proportional to the pressure and inversely proportional to the resistance. So same thing we are going to apply here also. But here we have the pressure difference, which is P1 and P2, and these are values which are present the pressure at the initial point of the or starting point of the artery and the second pressure at the end of the artery or the vessel. Obviously, the blood is flowing from the heart, from the left chamber, and through this vessel coming to the right side of the heart. The flow is always from the high pressure towards the low pressure. For that, we must have some pressure difference between the two ends of the vessel. Otherwise, the blood will not flow. You must clear about the pressure and the pressure difference. Suppose a vessel have 100 mm Hg pressure inside that vessel. The blood will not flow unless and until there is some difference between the initial point of the vessel and the second or last point of the vessel. So you must have 101, 110 on initial point and 100 on the second point. That is from high pressure to the low pressure. Only in that case the blood will flow. Otherwise, if the value is 100 or 120 or any so, or less or 80, if there is no difference between the initial and the first and the last point of the vessel, the blood will not flow. So this pressure, this one, is actually the difference between the pressure at two ends of the vessel. So the flow of the blood that is directly proportional to this difference of the pressure and inversely proportional to the resistance of the vessel. And also, if this resistance present in the vessel that decreases, the flow obviously increase. If there is less resistance forward, obviously that becomes very easy for the blood to flow in that vessel. But if the resistance increases, the flow obviously decreases. If ahead there is any clot is there in the blood vessel which is offering great resistance, or the diameter of the vessel that decreases, that increase the resistance and the flow to that organ or the vessel that will decreases. So and this is the relationship between the flow of the blood and the resistance, and also it is directly proportional to the this pressure, which is actually the pressure difference of the vessel present on the initial and ending point of the vessel. Now comes the flow of the blood, how it is flowing inside the blood vessel. We have two types of the flow, laminar and the turbulent. But before that, I must tell you, or I should ask one question from you. You have completed the unit of the blood, and you all know that the composition of the blood is we have plasma and cellular parts. Cellular part consists of different types of the blood cells, including the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. My question is, the blood is flowing in the blood vessels. What is the arrangement to flow for the plasma and the cellular part? Either we have a specific arrangement for that, or they are simply flowing throughout in a mixed pattern. And also you should Justify it. Justify your answer. I will tell you the answer later on, but you think about it. Meanwhile, we discuss the laminar flow and the turbulent flow. Laminar flow is, that is, the blood flow at steady rate, each layer remaining at same distance from vessel wall and moving in one direction, and you must know that the flow is orderly, smooth, disciplined. While in the turbulent, there is no discipline. We have the rough pattern of the flow of the blood. The molecules, they are moving in all directions and they offer more resistance and require more energy also. From this you can check the laminar flow and the turbulent flow, and it's better that I should show you the animation for the laminar flow, that is, the blood is flowing in a very ordered manner, disciplined manner, and the vessel wall you can see the very smooth, offering the smooth flow of the blood. This is the laminar flow. One more animation to show you how the smoothness of the molecules that take place. Check the difference of the movement of the molecule and shape of this curve. Why this is so? You can check it. Almost straight line, while with the time we have the curve. What is happening here? My next question from your side. ठीक है? Okay, then we come to the next thing. Turbulent. No pattern. Rough molecules are moving in all directions. Very clear comparison of the laminar turbulent flow. This is the pattern for laminar, the first one, and the turbulent flow. But the difference is, in this vessel we have initially the laminar, while here the turbulent. What is happening this one? At this stage I am asking many questions from you, and I will answer these questions later on. One more thing, the turbulent flow increases the wall stress. You can see how much dilatation here. Now coming to the previous one, and now I will answer you the all of the questions. The first question I asked you, that what is the pattern for the plasma and the cellular part to flow in the blood vessel, and why, if they have specific, is there any specific pattern or not, and justify your answer. The answer is that whenever the blood is flowing in the blood vessel, there is a very specific pattern for that one. They make three layers. Suppose this is the blood vessel. The blood moving or flowing in that vessel makes normally three layers. In that way, that plasma is facing or lying outside and the cellular part inside, and then we have the plasma here. Plasma here, cellular part, the plasma here again. So that they are forming layers. All around the plasma is outside and cellular part is inside. The plasma is offering a cushion to the cellular part to avoid any injury to the vessel wall. If these cells they come in contact with the normal vascular wall, it can injure the vessel wall. So, to avoid the injury, the plasma provides the cushion to the cellular part and avoid the injury to the vessel wall so that it is present all around on the outer side and cells they are moving in the middle of the blood. One thing, and you have covered the blood unit, so you have completed the inflammatory process or that take place. To cover up the inflammatory process, the neutrophils they come out of the vessel. I have told you that all these cells, including the white blood cells, RB cells, all these cells they are moving in the middle portion of the vessel, in the middle portion of the blood vessel, so that in the inflammatory process, the first step that is neutrophils line up the vessel wall. How? Because of the chemotactic forces. They come nearer to the vessel wall and then they come out of the vessel wall to reach their target, inflammatory target. So you must know that in that case, the wall of neutrophils that take place. This process is called walling off or wall off. Okay, so normally they are present in the middle part. That's the reason. So the blood is flowing in the blood vessel, forming three layers. On outer layers, on both sides, we have the plasma and the cellular part is inside. But in the inflammatory process, neutrophils comes to line up to the vessel wall and then ultimately come out. Now I was asking the next this one, why it is changing its shape. It's changing its shape because these molecules they are come in and they are in contact with the vessel wall having the resistance while they are flowing in the middle part. So with the time they have this shape. They are having the resistance of the vascular wall more as compared to these middle one, that one. So that with the time the shape that changes. But they are all flowing in a very smooth manner and because of that we labeled it as laminar flow. As compared to this one, all the molecules they are haphazardly moving. Sometimes this one is facing the more resistance, sometimes this molecule. So it is the mixed type. No smooth pattern. So we label it turbulent flow. You can have this one. The third thing which I want to clear it from this diagram, that this flow can be changed into this one, and again this one. How this occur? Because of the local constriction or any obstruction of the blood vessel. This may be any local clot, or we can have any constriction of the blood vessel wall. Because of that, there is increased resistance to the blood flow, or the accumulation of the cholesterol here, making the abnormality to the vessel, creating the abnormality in the vessel wall, making the thick vessel wall, or any constriction, local constriction. All these factors, they offer the great resistance to the smooth flow. Once the smooth flow of the blood passes through this part of the vessel, that is changed into turbulent flow. So, and once again this part is removed, what happens? That the flow become again smooth and mannered. Here no pattern, while this again, because we have covered the resistant part, so now we can have again the smooth flow of the blood. So this flow, that is the laminar and turbulent, it is not fixed for a vessel. It can be changed. And second thing, the flow that is changed because of the resistance offered by the vessel wall or any other factor, so that the blood flow is changed, the type of the blood flow that is changed. As we have already discussed, that the blood flow is depends upon the pressure difference of the vessel present in the vessel, and also the resistance. So you can see that how the resistance is changing the pattern of the blood flow also. In our body, we have different type of the situation. Often we can have the branching vessels. Often we can have the vessels present in serial or branching pattern, or they are arranged in the parallel way. So how the blood flow is changed or affected by this pattern? I want to say that how the resistance present in this type of the vessels, how that is going to affect the blood flow. So if the blood vessels, they are arranged in the series manner. The first example, when blood vessels are arranged in series, flow through each blood vessel is the same, and the total resistance to the blood flow is equal to the sum of the resistance of each vessel. So that we can sum up R1, R2, R3 and 4. These are the resistance present in different vessels. So the total resistance is equal to the sum of the resistance of each vessel, while in other condition the blood vessels branch, and this pattern is called the parallel arrangement. For a given pressure gradient, for greater amounts of the blood will flow through this parallel system than through any of the individual blood vessels. In that case, for blood vessels arranged in parallel pattern, the total resistance to the blood flow is the this one by total resistance is 1 by The first resistance present in the first vessel, in the second resistance present in the second, third. That is, in this manner we have the sum up of the resistance offered by these vessels present in the parallel way. The parallel arrangement permits each tissue to regulate its own blood flow to a greater extent independently of the flow to the other tissue. That is the very important thing about this arrangement. Hematocrit, what is that one? Hematocrit, by definition, is that this is the proportion of the blood, that is the red blood cells present in the blood. So what is the amount of the RBC actually? That is called the hematocrit. Normal value for the adult male, that is 42, and for the female it is the 38. I want to show you the next diagram also, but before that you must know that this is the portion which is offering the viscosity. That is, it is the cellular portion, the main cellular portion. Because of that portion the blood becomes more viscous. If this portion is more than normal, the viscosity will increase. If this portion is lesser, as for example in anemia we have less quantity, less number of RBC, the viscosity of the blood also decreases. So this is very important thing. You can see this is the normal and anemia and polycythemia. We are going to compare these one. Compare it. In anemia, as you know, the number of RBC that decreases. So this liquid portion that increases while the cellular portion that decreases. And in polycythemia, excessive immature cells, cellular part increases, this portion plasma that decreases. This is the normal. You can say almost the 45 and 55%. This is the hematocrit, but we can have one more practical in the lab regarding the ESR, in which you measure this clear portion, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, in which the cellular portion that settle down and you measure the clear portion. But remember it that in that case the tube is different. In that the graduations that are starting from 0 and going here to the 100, and you are going to measure per hour. But here just I want to show you that we are having a view of the ratio of the liquid portion and the cellular portion, and we are measuring here the cellular portion, that is the hematocrit. How it is affecting the how you are going to compare the viscosity of the whole blood, plasma and water, that is here. This is the viscosity of the plasma. The least one is the water, and normal blood having the viscosity almost 3 times the water. One more diagram to show the plasma, buffy coat of the white blood cells, and the hematocrit that is purely consist of RBC. Some factors which are going to affect the blood flow, as we have already discussed, the resistance in much more detail. So increased blood pressure, Distance the vessels, decrease the resistance, and more flow. Autoregulation. What is meant by the autoregulation? One thing I must clear it. Autoregulation is a system through which the blood flow to the local organ or the exercising muscle, local muscle, that can be managed itself. Locally, some substances they can manage the blood flow to that organ or to the muscle locally. Obviously, we have the systemic control is there, but before that, immediately we can control the local blood flow to the organ or the muscle through the autoregulation, and we will discuss this autoregulation in much more detail in the following discussions. Sympathetic stimulation, how it affecting the blood flow, it increases the resistance, and so that there will be less flow, and also there is increase in the blood pressure. Hormones, different hormones, they can affect the blood flow. Passive or isolated vessels show marked response to low or high blood pressure. Critical closing pressure, that is the lowest pressure at which tone in the vessels causes vessels to close. This is the effect of the sympathetic stimulation and inhibition. You can see because of the sympathetic stimulation there is increase in the resistance, which ultimately increase the arterial pressure, while sympathetic inhibition it can decrease the arterial pressure. And this thing we will discuss in more detail in the following discussions. Here now I stop with this just overview of the circulatory system, just having slight introduction to the circulatory system. Okay, thank you and Allah Hafiz.